watching the American-Made Guitar Show, brought to you by UsedPedals.com and Wilgard Productions. Visit WilgardProductions.com for all your audio production needs. Without further delay, here's your host from Chester, Montana, USA, Gary Housley.
Hi everybody, this is Gary Housley with American-Made Guitar Show. And I've got a very special guest on with me today, Glen. He's better known for his time with Megadeth, Testament, and King Diamond, as well as other bands. However, today that's kind of not what I'm going to be focusing on with Glen. Glen, how you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
You're welcome. You know, like I said, I kind of really want to do my interview a little bit different than what you're used to. I don't want to focus so much on the past. I don't want to focus so much on Megadeth and all this other stuff from the past. I'm really more concerned about what you're doing right now. And just could you fill me in on where you're at right now and what you're doing? You're kind of a mystery to me.
Well, let's see. The main thing I'm doing right now is there's two different albums that I'm working on, and one of them, they're both well, the one, which is a guest singer's album, as I call it right now. There's no title for it, but it's just, I just refer to it as, it's an album with basically 9 or 10 songs with different singers from the industry. And I've been working on it for quite some time, kind of on and off. And it's pretty close to being done now. So, but that's an album, like I said, just different singers. There's one track that has Chuck Billy from Testament on it. One has Todd from Queensryche. Henning from Firewind, just a bunch of, really good singers, be it both, buddies of mine that I met through my travels with the bands that I was in and became friends with, or just singers that I really looked up to and really wanted to work with and haven't worked with in the past. So that's what that album is about. And then there's another album that it's more like kind of like a follow-up to the Metallusion album I did in 2011, which is all instrumental. So, I'd say it's about maybe halfway finished. Again, another album that I've been kind of, working on here and there, kind of when I, when I'm just working on it when I feel like it, type of thing. And when time allows, because some of the people that are involved, like Jim from Saga, who's finishing up some touring in Europe with Saga. It's about, when we all have time to do our parts and put things together and record and so forth. But yeah, that's an album that I don't know when it'll be finished. Maybe I'm hoping it's going to be all completed and out by the summer of next year. But it's, I've been just kind of slow working on it, again, not just because of our schedules doing other things, but also to just really trying to take my time and making sure that everything is, that I'm really happy with everything. The first one I kind of did, was done in the same nature, where it was done over a couple of years. And I'm really very proud of that album. And for me, it's my favorite recording that I've done with anybody, or have done, period, rather. So, so that's basically it, as far as the recording stuff, working on those two albums. And live stuff I don't really play as much as I used to. We do a thing sometimes called the Night of Metal, which is more or less just a celebration tribute night of classic metal and from bands that we've played in and the related bands. And that's of course me, my brother Sean, who was the drummer in Megadeth, and Ripper Owens. So yeah, and our bass player was good buddy of mine, Adrian, who was the bass player in the Eidolon stuff that me and Sean did for several years with Metal Blade. So, and then sometimes, if need be, if Alex has, or there's a conflict of schedules in Testament with Alex and the band, then sometimes I'll step in and go and play and have some fun. So that's pretty much as far as stuff that I've been working on, what I've been doing, yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose you're doing all this from your Eclipse recording studios, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's, I mean, everything is completed here, as far as a lot, a chunk of recording, mixing and mastering. Sometimes I'll outsource the mastering, but I've done a lot of my own. And then whoever else is involved will do their tracks in where they're at, be it Jim Gilmore doing keyboards on the Metallusion stuff. He'll do stuff in his Toronto studio, and singers that I work with from anywhere from, Germany, Florida, Texas, Norway, as a lot of people do this kind of long distance, these collaborations these days. It's a pretty common thing. With obviously with thanks to the internet and being able to send proper files back and forth to be able to do it and still maintain proper quality. Yeah. So
that's incredible that you're able to do this worldwide collaborations, work on all these 2 albums all at one time.
Yeah, it is a great thing, and anybody could do it. It's available for anybody to do. The trick is obviously you want to have it to where it's cohesive sounding, and it sounds like everybody was in the same studio. That's the trick to it. But we all, the people that I work with and myself, we have quite a bit of experience doing this kind of thing, recording stuff, over many years, and now have jumped into this world of doing a lot of stuff on computer-based recording and sending materials through the internet. So yeah,
that's great. We've got somebody that wants to say hello from out of the chat. So hello, Frank. That's my sponsor. So I just wanted to say hi to Frank. He's excited that I had Glen Drover on today, and I'm excited too. You know what? I'm not going to dive into this Megadeth stuff and all this old stuff. I'm not really going to dive into it. I just have to say one thing about it though. My favorite lineup: Lomenzo, your brother, yourself, and Mustaine. That was my favorite lineup. United Abominations, Peace Cells, all that. It was absolutely wonderful, man. And I commend you on the absolute wonderful job you did at the time you were with Megadeth and those other bands. And that's all I have to say about those bands.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Now, have you noticed a difference, in your son's case now that you've had more time to spend with him? Because I know that was a sore spot with you.
Well, it was, that's an old story now, but that was just a part of it. It was, and I'm not, I won't get into all the personal stuff, but there was, I wasn't really overly happy, in the band, and at that point, I was happy in the first 2 or 3 years, and then towards the end, I wasn't as happy anymore, and I guess that might have been magnifying the fact that I was missing my son growing up, because I joined the band when he was 2. It's a lot different now. He's 16 years old, but at the time, I had already played with King Diamond for a little while, and which was a dream for me because I grew up, they were one of my favorite bands. So to join that band was an amazing thing, and they're all great people, and they're still good friends of mine. But once I got married, and kind of personal, but once I got married, I had a kid. I didn't really want to I was like, okay, I want to do this, and me and Sean were focusing on the Eidolon stuff and being more of a kind of recording based band, doing, we did some festivals, we did Vakken, we did Bang Your Head, we did some other European stuff, we did some US festivals in Canada and the US. So we did, kind of sporadic shows with that band. We never got into touring. So we're more of a recording based band, like I mentioned. And I was quite content with that. But then I had an offer, and I really couldn't refuse that offer. And all the support around me with my family definitely agreed with that. And so, yeah, after a while, I with issues that were going on that were not in my control in the band, we're focusing or magnifying the fact that, hey, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to wake up one day and my kid's 15. So, and I missed everything, So that was, definitely part of it. Yeah.
Well, I commend you for being a stand-up father and standing up for your values. I commend you.
I'm quite proud of that. I'm really proud that, not everybody, we're all different. So everybody has different, types of ideas of what they want to do and priorities. And for me, that was, I'm very proud that I put my son first in a lot of ways. So, and at the same time was able to experience, all those amazing things that I did, especially all the bands that I played with, it was all great experiences. But obviously Megadeth was quite unique because my brother was involved. So me and my brother were seeing the world together, playing in a band of that size that, that we grew up listening to, and, had somebody said, hey, you two are going to be in this band one day. It would have been quite comical, obviously, but, it did happen. I joined the band, and then Sean joined shortly after, and we experienced a lot of amazing things, going to Japan several times and doing European tours and all the amazing festivals that we did, Download, all those things, I'm very, very happy that I did them. So as well, right? So.
Yeah, I've caught the Download videos, and it's just amazing to watch you perform on stage. You're an amazing, phenomenal guitar player. Where do you get these stage clothes at, man? You always wear these cool jackets and.
Well, that comes from Dave. Dave is, we learned a lot from him, a lot of good stuff, and he was always, really, always up on, let's, basically always not always wearing the same shit all the time, and I believe, one was there was a jacket I had, which was, I don't know, it looked like it came from World War II or something. It was the green jacket.
Yeah.
That one was really cool. And that came from a video shoot that we did for one of the songs on that album I did. And I think it was in Los Angeles, and we had some people there. Dave had some people there with different, with clothes and different, possibilities, stuff we can maybe use for the video shoot and all that stuff. And there was the one jacket. Like, wow, this is really cool. And Dave's like, yeah, try it on, And I was like, yeah, this is really cool stuff. And so of course I had to, I bought that, and so along the way, I remember one time we were in Australia, and Dave bought me some really cool, leather pants and a leather shirt, which was kind of like a cross between a jacket and a shirt. And I used that, I believe, in the video for what do you call it? That one night video. Yeah. The Argentina one that we shot. So, it was just wherever we were, we would always find, kind of cool stuff to add and wear and all that good shit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your son, you said he's 16. That kind of reminds me of something. Wolfie Van Halen, when he was around that age, was joining up with Van Halen, and starting to play with his dad on different shows and touring, and it was really kind of a fantastic thing. Is your son following in the footsteps of Dad?
I'll tell you, to be honest with you, he has it in his blood. He started playing keyboards from piano, keyboard stuff from a very early age. He got into playing a little bit of guitar. He picks up stuff very, very fast. He just has, natural rhythm inside him. He just catches the stuff. He gets it. At this point, I wouldn't say he's like, really diving into that in a big way. He's really into computers and stuff like that, which is great as well. So it's whatever he wants to do, and maybe down the road he'll get more into it. But at this point, he's really, heavily into computers, and he's amazing at that. And but I know that if he wanted to get into music, he would be great at that. He would be definitely a really good musician, because I taught for a number of years, and so it's easy for me to spot if somebody's has it, or maybe they should take up sports or something, and he definitely, I'm not just saying this, but he has it, and if he wanted to pursue it, he could be successful at it, no problem. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's great. Does he get you to play video games?
Yeah, of course we do stuff together,
Awesome.
But, he also does a lot of stuff with his friends online, and which is a common thing these days, but he's just a real wizard when it comes to computers and stuff,
Is he turning you on to new music? Are you listening to anything because of him or anything?
No. Like I said, it's more about computers for him right now. It's not all about music like it was for me when I was growing up, and it was all about music, from a very, very, very young age. 4 or 5, I was fascinated with it. And by 8, I got my first album, which was Love Gun by Kiss. And that's when I was introduced to hard rock music. And it all went from there, you know, in a big way. And then I started playing guitar by the time I was 10 years old, you know, and it just escalated from there. And it really, it hasn't changed. You know, it's really easy to buy me a present for Christmas or my birthday, you know. Give me an album, you know, it's pretty easy. I'm easy to shop for.
Well, you know, you've been great so far. I tell you, man, I'm amazed at your answers. And but to transition a little bit into some kind of more geeky things here, what kind of I mean, it's since you're not touring, it's kind of a weird question, I guess, and I apologize, but I'm really curious about what you're using as far as your amps and your your gear. I'm really curious about what you're doing for your sound and tone right now.
Well, right now, I'm really super heavy into the Kemper. I use that for pretty much everything now. Before the Kemper came along, which was about a year ago, I was introduced to the Kemper. I'll start by how it all came about. I did a few shows at the beginning of a Slayer tour in the U.S. playing with Testament, because Alex couldn't make the first few shows, so I stepped in and played those shows. And in the past, my setup would pretty much consist of Schecters, the GSP 1101 by Digitech. That would be my main source of sound, which would be effect looped into a power amp or a tube amp, and through a cabinet or 2 or 3 or 4. That was and I still love that setup. It's a great setup. But then, before I play these shows, Chuck asked me, you know, he said, hey, you know, the guys are using Kempers now. Would you mind using it for the show? It's just a lot easier, you know. It's all set up and ready to go. It's, yeah, cool. Which is, I mean, you know, of course, I'll go along with the program. But it was a little bit nerve-wracking at first, because I was like, you know, any guitar player, you get on stage and you've never, you know, tried you're playing with equipment that you've never played with before. You don't know if you're going to be comfortable and all that good stuff. But right out of, you know, I mean, the first couple of chords, I'm like, yeah, this thing sounds, you know, awesome. So that was where I was first exposed to the Kemper and using it. And shortly after, like, I got to get one of these for the studio, and which I did. So I'm using that. I use that for everything now. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I can't say enough good things about it. It's just an incredible piece of equipment, you know, and not only just for guitar amps, but, you know, it doesn't discriminate. You could use it. I mean, it's got an incredible bass amps. It's an amp profiler, whether it's a guitar amp or a bass amp, and you know, it's just all amazing stuff. So I've been, you know, putting together my favorites folder full of all my, you know, go-to amps that I want to use for different things that I'm recording, be it a Marshall or 5150s, crank stuff, boogie stuff, Soldano, you know. Typically for me, Marshalls are my favorite for solos, whereas rhythms at this point, although I have a ton of great profiles that I've been shaping and, you know, trying to make my own. There's a 5150 one, 5150 original head mixed with a crank cabinet that I've yet to beat. It's an amazing tone. Actually, you could hear this. There's a video I actually just released for fun the other day. I haven't really promoted it too much yet. I threw the information on my Facebook page and Twitter and all that stuff, and put a lyric picture video. A buddy of mine helped me put it together, and it's actually a cover song of by Alice in Chains called Junkhead. It's a song off the album Dirt, one of my favorites, and that's going to be on the guest singers album I was telling you about. There's going to be maybe 1 or 2 covers, and all the other songs in the album are original, but that's going to be one of the few covers on there, and it's really proud of this cover we did of this song. And again, it's on YouTube, but the tone that I'm using, the guitar tone, is that particular profile I was telling you about, which is the 5150 with an oversized crank cabinet and a tube screamer, and it just sounds amazing. I just love it to death.
You know, I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, that tone is featured in that song. So, but like I said, it's on YouTube. If you punch up, it's easy to find. Just punch up Glen Drover, Junkhead. Well, it didn't sound too good, did it? So yeah, really easy to find. And like I said, it's not, it's just the video itself. It's more kind of, focused on the audio. But, instead of just having a black screen on YouTube, we put the lyrics in and put some imagery that relates to the lyrics, which is basically about heroin, and all that silly stuff. So.
Right on. And, I know from your past interviews that that's something that you shied away from, and I commend you again for that.
What drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was not always a good boy. I was, I like to drink, alcohol, but and now I've stopped that. So it's been now I drink coffee and tea. That's what happens when you get older. You get kind of boring. And no, I had my fun in the sun, and but no, drugs were never my thing. It was more I like to drink. But and then until it got to the point where my body wasn't really agreeing with it anymore, and laid that to rest. So
that's great. I'm glad to hear that. You know what? I've got a picture of you up right now, and you've got this fantastic looking acoustic guitar with you in a studio.
Yeah.
I could you tell me about your acoustic guitar?
Well, that's that's an Ovation Al Di Meola signature model. And great guitar, again, another piece of equipment I can't say enough good things about. But, to be honest, the acoustic thing I was never huge into acoustic. I like it for some things and I play it sometimes, but I've never, I'm not like one of those guys that likes to play acoustic all the time. I'm more of an electric guy, really. And although I like to play acoustic, sometimes I get a little bit bored with it, to be honest. And, but nonetheless, it's a great guitar, and there you have it.
Well, that's a great transition into electric guitars. I understand that
That's
you're
what
with.
started for me. I started with, the first guitar I owned was my parents bought me an acoustic. It was actually a nylon string, classical style kind of acoustic thing, And then the following years when I got my first guitar, which was a Les Paul knockoff, and then it went from there.
Right on. And let's talk about some electric guitars. I've seen you with, you've got some American-made guitars, and that's a big part of the focus of my show.
Right.
And I realized that I believe that you're with Schecter now. Is that correct?
Right.
Right. And as far as Schecter models, what is it you're playing?
Well, they've sent me a few, and they're all great. But the ones that I favor for sure are the Solo 2 Platinums. And they're more like a Les Paul kind of shaped guitar, but they're 24 fret. So they're very comfortable for me. I've in recent years got more into the Les Paul shapes, because before it was always the Strat kind of shapes, and Jackson soloists and Charvel Model 5s, and I love those to death. But it was always about that. I never got into the Flying V's or the Destroyers or the funky metal shape stuff. I never got into that stuff. So for me, it's always been about Les Paul shapes and Strat shaped guitars. So, yeah. But I mean, the Solo 2 is, like I say, that for me is my favorite model to use from Schecter. And I started using them. Actually, I think the first shows I used them were the ones that I mentioned before with Testament, which was I think it was March of 2016. So I used, it was a black and a silver one that I have here that I used, and I just love them to death. You can see those videos are up on YouTube as well. It shows me playing those ones. If you play, like one show in particular that you can see which features those guitars, and I believe there's different videos just showing some of the songs that we played. And then there's also, I think, a clip of the whole show, which is the Nashville show in 2016, I believe. So if you punch that one up, Testament Nashville 2016, that's one of the shows I played, and those two guitars are in that show.
Awesome. I'm gonna definitely have to do that. Glenn, this is the part of the show where I actually field a question from our participants over in the chat room that have been watching as we're live here on YouTube. And here's a question from Frank Williams out of Austin, Texas. He says, Glenn, any advice for working bands like mine that can't seem to bridge that unforeseen gap to getting attention of labels, large tours, getting in the circles of bigger acts, etc.?
You know, it's a difficult question because everything is so different now than when I was getting into all this stuff 20 years ago. You know, it's a completely different world. You know, I think it seems to be these days where a lot of people are obviously focusing on, you know, promotion on the net and social media, which is all great. But I really think that, you know, doing the old school of playing bars and you know, and putting up your own flyers and stuff like that, and word of mouth really still is very effective, maybe even still more effective than, you know, some of the stuff on the internet, you know, like Facebook and whatever promotion that you're using through, you know, on the internet. There's really no clear way, man. You know, there's different avenues, and it seems to be, you know, that's just seems to be the way it is right now. And but you know, it's I think a lot of it really too is common sense of just, you know, just trying to promote as much as you can in as many places as you can, and get out and play as much as you can. And you know, it's word of mouth, like I said, it's still a big thing. You know, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be an effective way of furthering the band and stuff like that. And that's, you know, that's it. So I think a combination of both might be, you know, the way to go. Just, you know, doing as much promo on the internet as you can, and getting out there and trying to play as much as well as you can. So
thank you for that answer, Glenn. And thank you.
Also too, in closing in that, obviously, you know, a lot of people are like, well, you know, should I do a CD? Nobody wants to, you know, nobody's buying CDs, everybody's stealing it. But that's kind of besides the point. When you're, you know, when you're starting out, really, the recording and doing an album, in a way, is like your business card. But it's you want it, number one, but it is completely necessary, because you're a band, you're out there playing, you don't have an album, it's like it's not real. So you have to have product. So don't focus on the, oh, you know, I wonder if I'll make some money back that, you know, I use to maybe, if you're, you know, let's say you're doing the manufacturing yourself and you're working with some promoters or some promotion, not promotion, but distribution houses that will, you know, distribute your CD, whether it's hard copy or digital. You know, places like TuneCore is a good place to check out. They do digital, you know, all the digital downloads that you can buy. TuneCore is a good one. It's very easy to set up your product through that. But whatever it is, you have to make that investment. And that's, again, that's what makes the band real. You have to have that product, you know, regardless of if you're going to make any money. Don't even think about that silly stuff. It's all about trying to further the band and getting the band out there and gaining the right exposure, and, you know, just taking further steps up the ladder along the way. And, you know, so that's always a necessary thing, is to have an album. And like I said, you want one anyways, you know, why, you know, you always want to do some kind of a recording, whether it's an EP or a full album or singles or whatever it is. But, you know, again, just my point is, again, don't worry about making any money, because you probably won't. But it's again, it's product that you need to support your band.
There you have it, Frank. You can't get a better answer than that, man. Wow.
Try.
Well, here's a good question for you. What's it like working with your brother? And I realize that you're about to do some more work with him. I noticed on your Facebook that he's coming to town. He's going to do some drumming recordings, and tell me about that.
Well, basically, that's not so much about stuff that we're doing on a professional level. It's really more about helping artists like, you know, the guys that you have in the chat room there that are looking to further, you know, trying to either further their band in some way or themselves, because we work with a lot of people that, you know, they're a guitar player, let's say, which is a typical situation. Everybody wants to play guitar, and they want to do recording, but they need drums, they need bass, they need vocals. So that's where, you know, we do that stuff. So Sean will supply drum tracks. I know various vocalists that will do amazing tracks, like I say, for example, Henning Bossi, who is in Metallium, and he's now with Gus G in Firewind. He's one of my favorite hard rock metal vocalists, period. And we work together, and we'll get him to do some stuff. You know, if we're working with somebody and they're liking his style, then we'll help with you know, getting him to do vocals for their music. So that's where we come in. We'll help form songs. We'll help take, you know, an artist's songs that he has completed, and, you know, do the drum tracks for it, bass tracks, whatever is necessary. I can accommodate all that stuff, and that's what we do pretty much aside from what you were asking me before, what I'm doing for myself, you know, musically. This is what I do pretty much for a living these days, you know, everything is online for me. I work online, and I help out a lot of different artists whether it's doing a guest solo for a band, you know, because bands will want, you know, everybody again wants some kind of an edge. So they get an artist that, like myself, with credentials, you know, so-and-so from this band and that band is, you know, so that gives the band a little bit of an edge on attention, because they're working with people that have played in known bands. And as well as, again, like I said, doing drum tracks for, like, on this trip, and for example, we have 3 different artists. They're all guitar players. And one guy he's got 4 songs he sent in demo form. Sean's going to do the drum tracks for that. And then after that, we add the guitars and the vocals and everything else. And because, like I said, you can do anything these days and anywhere. You know, I could do maybe the mixing here. Buddy in Japan will do the mastering, and this guy does the vocals here in Montreal. And, you know, it's just, the possibilities are endless for these kind of things. And it's not like the old days when I was growing up and doing this kind of stuff, where everybody had to be together in the studio at the same time in the same studio. So all these possibilities are all there, and they're exciting too, because, you know, you get to work with different people that you thought you'd never be able to get to work with. So all these people that we're doing stuff for are, you know, they're all excited. Like, wow, you know, it's really cool that we have all these different musicians that we never thought we really work with, you know, working on my material. So it's a pretty exciting thing.
It is exciting.
That's what this trip is. And Sean's usually up here every, you know, 3 or 4 months, and that's what we do. We work with different artists, which most of them will contact me on my Facebook page. You know, and that's how we, it's very simple. We get paid, you know, through PayPal, which everybody uses, and away we go. You know, and our rates are good too. So.
All right. You know, I've got a question for you, and I want you to really think about this, and I'm going to mention to you 3 names, and I want you to tell me what comes to mind when I mention each one of these names.
All right.
Okay. First name, Malcolm Young.
You know, he's really sad to hear the news, obviously, and you know, he went down a bad road with alcohol, and then he got out of it. Was the dementia caused from the alcohol? Good chance. But regardless, he wound up with that illness and died, and he was a great support guitar player for his brother, a great rhythm guitar player. You know, they wrote classic, you know, the most classic rock stuff that will always stand the test of time. So, pretty sad.
It is. Thank you for that comment. Next name, Randy Rhoads.
Oh, another tragic, you know, loss, obviously. He was a big influence on me when he came out and beyond that. So, you know, I remember vividly being in my bedroom, and my brother, it was in the morning, my brother got up out of bed, came in my room and said that Randy Rhoads had died. What had happened was he was at I don't know, we're in high school at this point. We were, you know, pretty young, and this was 1982, March 1982. And we had just got Diary of a Madman for Christmas, and we also had tickets to go see the show at the Forum in Montreal That's where we lived. We lived outside of Montreal at this point. And and he came in and told me that, because the night before he was at some kind of a high school party or something, you know, whatever, friend's party, and they heard it on the radio. And I was like, wow, you know, and then we ended up actually going to see that tour, but it was Brad Gillis that, when Brad Gillis came in, they rescheduled the show because the tickets we had, I think this is how the story goes. I'm not 100%, but pretty sure we had the tickets, and then, you know, we had kept them, and without getting a refund, we were able to use it for the next event, for the reschedule, which was in June. Because the original show was supposed to be in, I can't remember. I think it was in April. I think it was right around the corner from when he died. Because the next show they were hitting, I think it was, I can't remember. Was it in Florida or something? But anyway, they were to hit Montreal, I think about 2 or 3 weeks later. Somewhere later in April. So it was like 2, 3, 4 weeks away that we were going to see him. And he died. You know, at the earlier part of that tour. That's how close I was to seeing it, getting to see that lineup. And then it was rescheduled for late June with Brad Gillis, and it was an amazing show as well. So,
wow.
Yep.
And then last but not least, I didn't want to leave with another name of a person who's passed away, but those are a couple of people that I wanted to mention. Last but not least, Dave Mustaine.
How did I know that was going to happen? Dave Mustaine. Well, I'm very, very thankful to Dave for giving me a career, you know, and giving me a chance when he didn't have to, you know. He liked what he's seen and heard from videos and albums that I did, and we had a lot of great times together, and which, you know, and I really appreciate all the stuff he did for me. And you know, he taught us a lot, like I mentioned before, and, you know, and me and him had a lot of great times together. You know, again, towards the end, I was having some issues, and, you know, and not as happy as I wished I could have been. But, you know, it's like any relationship, I suppose. It's been 10 years. It's been a long time now, you know, so, but although it doesn't feel like it was a little while ago. But I like any relationship, you remember the good stuff after a certain period of time, and I have a lot of great memories to remember from when I worked with him. So I have a lot of respect for him, and like I said, he helped me and Sean out in a big way, and very thankful.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Gary Housley and Glen Drover on the American Made Guitar Show. And I just want to thank you before we get off here, Glen. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Yeah, thank you as well.
All right, and remember, everybody, until next time, keep it rocking.
Video production for the American Made Guitar Show by Gary Housley. Audio production by Wilgard Productions. Visit wilgardproductions.com for all your audio production needs.